Hi, and welcome to an RPM Telco webinar. Today we're going to be doing a RPM Telco What's New for a small little update called RPM 33.1. So this isn't a full version release like we normally do from RPM 33 to 34, for example. And we just created a new feature, had some improvements that we thought were going to be helpful, so we didn't want to wait for a full version release to release them. So we did a small little update here, and I'm going to be going over the one new feature as well as the two new improvements that we made to the user experience for RPM Telco, and we hope that you find them awesome like I do. So first things first, I'm going to be jumping into a new feature, which is the hide and show customer alias for agency users. And they pretty much go over mainly about like aliases in terms of customers. So you might be wondering what customer aliases are if you haven't used them or aren't familiar with them. Hopefully you are familiar with them because they're a super useful feature in RPM, which pretty much allows you to relate multiple different naming structures of a customer into one master or primary customer in RPM. So normally you would create them by either manually adding them. So you can go like, you have a customer called Apple, and then you have variations of it like Apple Inc. or Apple LLC, things like that. And you want to relate all of those variations to that one primary customer. You would add an alias for it. The other more common way of adding them is through a customer merger. That's where you have, say, like commission data from all your different suppliers and TSDs, and those suppliers and TSDs have just a small variation or maybe a large variation of how they name their customers, and it creates those customer records in your RPM. And when you do a customer merge to kind of consolidate those records, it combines the commission history, but what it also does is it creates a customer alias in the background, which lets the RPM importer know that, hey, even though that I merged the customers together, I still want this variation of the customer name to relate back to my primary customer naming variation. So that's what customer aliases are. If you're not using them, you should be using them. I think they're super helpful in keeping your data clean and consistent, especially if you're going into things like integrations with other systems and things like that. It's really kind of crucial to make sure that like 10 or 20 or even 30 variations of your customer names all kind of align. So customer merge really, or customer aliases, is a feature you should really leverage in making sure that that stuff lines up. So yeah, so the main feature itself is the ability to hide or show it to your agency users. Now by default, before this feature came out, your aliases by customer are shown to all of your agents by default. So when this feature releases, they're still going to be shown to your agents by default. So if you're not interested in this feature, you don't have to change anything. But one thing to keep in mind is that customer aliases are visible to your agents. So if you have things like addresses, or your supplier or TSD includes the address in the customer name, that stuff, when you merge them together, could be shown in the customer alias box to your sale partners or your agents, which you might not want them to see. Maybe you don't want them to see every single address that you have under that customer. And since you merged a whole bunch of them together, they'll have that full list of those aliases in. So that's one thing you want to kind of keep an eye on and just make sure that you can check it. Or if you don't want to check it, you can just set the feature to hide and just not worry about it, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll show you what that looks like inside of my RPM demo here. So in this subscription, the feature will be located in the top left menu under sales partners. So this is just the agency page. It's just renamed to sales partner in this demo. You can rename this to whatever you like if you didn't know. So yeah, if you need help on how to do that, you can definitely reach out to us. But if you want to rename your agency page, that is doable. So in the more menu here, the feature is under the settings, and this will change it across the board for all of your agent users, whether they're a manager user or a rep user. You can make a differentiation here. So you can either show it to all of your managers and hide it to all of your reps, or you can just do it on both. But before I hit OK here, let me just switch over to my agency page here, or my agency login. Go into the customers and then go into my only customer to show you what the alias box looks like. So the alias box is right here as an agent login. It could also be like wherever, because they can drag it and rearrange it. So in here, I can see I have a variation of this customer name called testing and testing, or test and testing, and I might not want the agent to see that. So if I jump back into my staff login here and I hit OK, now it's set to hide, and then I jump back into my agent login and I give the page a little refresh, and you'll notice the alias box is gone. So that's it. Super simple feature, and yeah, not much more to show than that. Now let me just jump into the back here, and then we'll go back to the agenda real quick, and we'll talk about the two improvements next. So table expand improvement and on-demand form reference loading. Now I'm going to jump back into my little demo here, which is located on my thing, and then we'll go to the top left menu, processes. So both these improvements are located in the process side of RPM. We'll go into, say, the orders process here, and we'll just click on a form. So the first one with the table expand improvement, it's when you go into like a form itself, you can see if it has a table in it. You might have noticed that sometimes when you're viewing it in that column, it's a little too small and you can't really see all of the information you want to see. Right, so this is a perfect example with my order updates here, where it only shows like about 6 or so columns, and when you hit expand, it used to just expand it into this window, and it was maybe a little bigger, but it didn't show all of the columns, and you still had a little scroll bar. So we tweaked with the settings a little bit, and we made it so that when you expand it actually shows the whole table, or at least it'll try its best to show the whole table. Like if your screen's still a little small and you have a ton of columns, you might still have that scroll bar, but it'll do a lot better job now in showing all of the columns if possible. So yeah, that's a quick, simple change, and the expand option will be under all of your tables. And yeah, if you have a huge ultra-wide monitor, I'm sure this would be super awesome if you have a huge table, and it'll expand all the way over and you'll be able to see all of it. Yeah, so this next little improvement is just we changed the way forms load. So when you hit edit under info here, back then it used to load based off of waiting off of every single reference field to kind of load. So now instead of having to wait for all of that, it should load way faster. And what will happen is you have to kind of keep an eye on this. It'll be pretty quick because I don't have too much information in this demo. But if I click my customers, you'll see that little loading option there, or it might just have a spinning thing sometimes, and it'll just pretty much be that the reference field will load when you click on it instead of loading when the form starts edit, like the page starts loading, or when you start a form, instead of waiting for all of it to load, it now loads independently. So this might seem like a small change, but if you were waiting a long time to get into like form edits and form starts, this should help a lot. And one really big nuance to this is that when you're clicking on these reference fields and they do that little load thing, if you have one that takes a really long time to load, you can actually just click into it and it'll say loading, and you can click out of it, and while it's loading you can fill in other parts of your form. So if you click on like your supplier list and it's taking forever, or your customer list is taking forever, just give those all a click maybe, and then scroll down here and start filling in your dates and all that other stuff, and then you come back once it's loaded and fill all that stuff in. But that's just hopefully an efficiency that improves everyone's workflow, really just lets you kind of refocus on filling in things you can actually fill in instead of clicking on something, waiting for like 10 or 15 seconds for a form field to load and then feeling a little down. But yeah, so just because of that change, you can get into the edit or start quicker, and you can work on more things. So definitely don't let a form field taking a little long to load slow you down from filling in other things in the form. That's pretty much the big takeaway. That's the only thing you take away from this what's new. That means I am successful. But yeah, so that is all I have to show you in this what's new. Again, if anyone has any questions or any concerns, or would like to just talk to me, you can reach out to me at support@rpmtelco.com. And yeah, everyone, thanks for attending this webinar, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.